Hello and welcome to Global Matters. On this program, we bring you issues of international relevance to Africa and indeed Nigeria. On the show today, we shall take another look at the just concluded COP28, the world's most important climate meeting that was held in Dubai. We shall look at the decisions at this meeting, the implications for Africa and indeed Nigeria. The United Nations Climate Change Conference COP28 ended with an agreement that signals what is termed the beginning of the end of the fossil fuel era. The meeting in Dubai laid the foundation for a swift, just and equitable transition to effective, efficient global renewable energy and deep emission cuts, and supported by scaled-up finance. In a global effort, negotiators from nearly 200 parties came together at the meeting with the decision to keep the global temperature limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach. And the list of the global stocktake agreed at COP28 had a need, one, for global greenhouse gas emissions to be cut 43% by 2030, compared to 2019 levels, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's two, tripling renewable energy capacity, then doubling energy efficiency improvement by 2030. That's three, and four. The list also includes accelerating efforts towards the phase down of unabated coal power. That's five. And number six, phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. And seven, other measures that drive the transition away from fossil fuels in the energy system in a just, orderly, and equitable manner, with developed countries continue to take the lead. The climate meeting in Dubai, which was attended by nearly 156 heads of states and government, reached a historic agreement on the operationalization of the loss and damage fund and funding arrangements, with more than $700 million commitment received during the course of the meeting. In addition, the meeting agreed on setting a new collective quantified goal on climate finance in 2024, taking into account the needs and priorities of developing countries. The new goal, which will start from a baseline of $100 billion per year, be a building block for the design and subsequent implementation of national climate plans that need to be delivered by 2025. Now, let's take a look at some of these decisions. Joining me today to look at some of these decisions and the implications for Africa are Tai Akpan. Ata is a digital transformation and climate change advocate. And I'm also joined by Akinbode Oluwafemi. He is the Executive Director of Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPPA. And we'll be taking a look at the politics of fossil fuel and climate funding on the program today. Don't go away. I'll be back after this break.
Hearing no objections, it is so decided.
The UN Climate Summit clinched an early victory on Thursday, with delegates adopting a new fund to help vulnerable nations cope with the cost of climate-driven disasters. The deal was adopted following the COP28 Dubai and already follows many months of negotiations. But some groups were cautious, noting there were still unresolved issues, including how the fund would be financed in the future. The United Arab Emirates will contribute $100 million to the pot, along with other countries contributing a total of just over $300 million. Germany pledged $100 million and the United States $17.5 million, with hopes the amount would build to a substantial sum. The early breakthrough on the damage fund, which poorer nations have demanded for years, could help grease the wheels for further compromises. Earlier in the day, COP28 President Sultan Al Jaber, who is also the CEO of the UAE's national oil company, opened the summit urging countries and fossil fuel companies to work together to meet global climate goals. Al Jaber aimed to strike a conciliatory tone following months of criticism over his appointment as the head of COP28.
Let history reflect the fact that this is the presidency that made a bold choice to proactively engage with oil and gas companies. We had many hard discussions. Let me tell you, that wasn't easy. But today, many of these companies are committing to zero methane emissions by 2030 for the first time. And now, many national oil companies have adopted net zero 2050 targets for the first time. And I'm grateful that they have stepped up to join this game-changing journey. But I must say, it is not enough. And I know that they can do much more.
Over the next 2 weeks, governments will also debate whether to agree, for the first time, to phase out the use of CO2-emitting coal, oil and gas globally, the main source of emissions. Also on the agenda is what's known as the global stocktake. This is when countries assess their progress in meeting global climate goals. The main one being the Paris Agreement goal of limiting global warming to well below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees Celsius.
We follow the stories and bring... All right, thank you for taking the time to join us on the program. While we're still expecting, our guests have joined, but I think we are having some kind of internet issues here. We're trying to resolve the technical aspect of this program. Our guest, Akinbode Oluwafemi, is already online. Before we had that internet downtime at Akwan, he's also already online. But while we're trying to resolve this internet issue, let's take this other report. We'll be back.
Every week, Habib Hassan Nasser has to defend his beachfront hotel in Ivory Coast against an attacker that threatens to destroy his livelihood. His assailant is the rising sea that is eroding this coastal resort.
If I hadn't made this protection, I can assure you that, you see there the two coconut trees with the statue in red next to the little boy? The sea would be beyond that, so that means that everything here would be washed away by the waves. Which means that I would have nothing, no space, no swimming pool, the hotel would be closed.
Nasser says that when he first came to Assini as a child, it would take 5 minutes to walk to the shoreline. Now he has to spend around $1,640 a week to buy truckloads of sand and hire workers to pour it into bags and shore up the hotel's defences. Ivory Coast's National Coastal Environment Management Programme says the national coastal erosion rate averages between 0.5 and 3 metres a year. Assini, it says, is of particular concern. That's due to the high rate of beach loss and its importance through tourism as an economic hub. Nasser says at this time of year the sand should be returning to the beach, but that it hasn't yet happened.
So we're behind schedule, but the longer we delay, the more the sea will attack us and we'll have to fight back. But at some point we won't be able to. It's the ocean. Either we put in the resources we don't have, or we'll have to put up with it.
The problem is not unique to Ivory Coast. UN climate experts have warned that, without adaptation, damages from sea level rise could cost 12 large coastal cities in Africa up to $86.5 billion by 2050. Further afield, Hawaii's highest court ruled at the end of October that a lawsuit by Honolulu against fossil fuel companies including Chevron, ExxonMobil and Shell could go ahead to trial. It accuses them of deceiving the public about climate change and cited damages from issues such as sea level rise. Assini's vulnerability was underscored in August. A series of oversized waves pummeled the shore, striking higher than ever before. Thanks to his sandbags, Nasser's hotel remained intact, but others were not as lucky. Standing in the ruins of his home, 60-year-old Alex Mesankwasi says the sea has taken everything away. And he asks, what am I going to do now?
Welcome back. I think we're very well and good to go. Let's take a look at some of the issues that have actually come up in the just concluded COP28. For me, there are a couple of issues, 6 of them, but my guest, Akinbode Oluwafemi. Akinbode, let's start with you. you were at the COP28 in Dubai. Give us some of the things you were able to, your takeaway from that meeting. Akin.
Thank you so much. The COP28 came up with what is now known as the UAE agreement, or the first global stock taking. And as you rightly mentioned, there were some discussions and decisions. And the decisions were made on the goals for global adaptation. Decisions were made on reduction of methane. And of course, critical decisions was also made on the issue of loss and damage. What most people, kind of acknowledge is that for 28 years, the big elephant in the room, which is fossil fuel, was never acknowledged. And for the first time, the COP acknowledges the fact that for us to address climate change, we must begin to end fossil fuel. So there were some decisions that were made that could be steps towards correcting some of the errors of the past. But I must also tell you that they were slow in coming, and some of them were not definitive enough. It took us years and years to campaign for loss and damage. But yes, there is a loss and damage mechanism that has not yet incorporated the principle of polluters pay. We have constantly advocated that the polluters must pay, and this time not only that the states should pay, but the corporations that are responsible for historical damages in our environment should pay for those damages. There were a lot of talks. However, particularly for us in Africa, is that the voices of the frontline communities were missing in most of those discussions. And sadly, why the frontline communities were missing, there were about 2,400 lobbyists for the fossil fuel that were in that conference. And that in itself has shown that we will continue to have slowed down in our global effort towards tackling climate change. And I must tell you that for every delay, frontline communities in Africa are at the receiving end. Despite the fact that we polluted the least, Africa contribute less than 4% to global climate emissions, and yet we are the most vulnerable. We are the continent at risk the most. We specifically went to Dubai to launch a documentary that we call Africa's Cooked and Sinking Communities. And that documentary showcased the plight of communities in Kenya, Taveta community in Kenya, in Cameroon, Kambele, and in Nigeria's Ayetoro. In Ayetoro, in Ondo State, here is a city of high history, and the city is sinking. The entire city now is being taken over by coastal erosion. How fast are we going to avert some of these damages? In itself, there is a loss and damage fund, but every day Africa is being lost and damaged as a result of climate change.
All right, Akin, thanks a lot. Let me quickly thank you for that very great contribution and the efforts of your organization in COP28 in Dubai. Let me go to Atai. Atai is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States of America. Atai, thank you for taking the time out of a very busy schedule in Atlanta to join us on the show today. I find very interesting one of the decisions. Akinbode stated a good decision. I don't know whether it's good or not for Africa. That's the issue that has to do with phasing out inefficient fossil fuel subsidies. Atai, how will this impact on Africa, especially Nigeria, where a fossil fuel nation? How would this decision to phase out fossil fuel impact on us? Atai.
So thank you, Tunde. I appreciate you having me. This is going to have such a broad spread impact across all sectors of our economy, directly because we're a mono economy that's solely dependent on fossil fuel. And we're not even helping matters the fact that we're producing not even the less harmful fossil fuel, but the high quality, high carbon fossil fuel. And we're equally emitting a whole lot into the air in terms of the greenhouse gases of fluorine, methane, nitrogen oxide, and mainly carbon dioxide as well. So the impact of this decision will impact us strongly unless we migrate immediately into an energy transition scheme that we already signed to. Nigeria has an energy transition plan that has to kick into action right away so that we can actually push our own luck a little further, because this is primarily why you see most of these big IOCs divesting, giving the excuse that is because of our areas of operation of the Niger Delta. That's not totally true. They have seen what they've done, that the world is moving fast enough from the regular fossil fuel, high carbon fossil fuel, and they're divesting because they've done a lot of investment in renewable energy. So you're going to see a whole lot of divestment of these big oil companies out of Nigeria. And you're going to equally see the fact that investors are now going to be excited to do long-term investment in carbon fossil fuel exploitation or exploration. So there's a whole new dynamic that's going to come into play. But there is a opportunity for Nigeria to cushion this by just making sure that they jump on all the available resources that is offered by this COP28. The financing are out there. You have the ESG funding, the loss and damage funding, you have the climate intervention funds. Nigeria has to immediately start mapping all their projects, not just the energy project. Energy project has to be seen more as an energy economy, not as an industry anymore, because this industry is going to drive a whole other element of United Nations UN SDG goals. So if you are not knowledgeable enough to do this, you're going to suffer, because you won't even be able to transit effectively and transit all sectors of the economy. But if you have the right knowledge and skill set, then you might be able to adapt in a way that the impact will not be very high. But I'm seeing a very impactful situation happening, not just in Nigeria, the entire South Hemisphere, all domain. A lot of companies, a lot of countries just discovered oil. So how are they going to feel? They just realize, oh, we just found oil and we're safe. All of a sudden, they tell you to face down. So Jamaica just found the oil just a few months ago. Guyana is sitting with the highest per capita income per oil deposit ever, with 13 billion barrels of oil sitting for 1 million per population. The entire oil domain in the south of Africa goes all the way down. They just found oil. So it is very important that all these oil domains get together, led by a country like Nigeria, who is the biggest player in the field right now. So this calls for Nigeria to step up in terms of driving mitigation, adaptation processes of the climate change projections. Advocacy, what's our strength? We need to exploit our strength. The youthful population, drive them into advocacy. But most importantly, there's still opening for Nigeria to become a major player. Energy information. What are the networks? There are no information anywhere. If we don't do what we're doing right now, nobody will get to have an idea of what's happening.
All right.
But right now, climate change needs a dedicated network as well.
All right, Atta, thanks a lot. Let me quickly apologize to our viewers. Your network is freezing. Your video is freezing. We're not able to get a clean feed from you where you are. You're freezing. But hopefully, let me turn to Akinbode in Lagos. Akin, I mean, you heard what Atta said clearly there, transiting to renewable energy. But the question, Akinbode, is, does Nigeria have the capacity for affordable renewable energy for the Nigerian masses?
So that's a $1 million question. And for me, the critical point is Nigeria government actually willing to transit? Are we not mired in oil already? I mean, for the past decades, everybody that studies the global landscape will know that the world is moving away from fossil. The world is moving towards renewable energy. And just 2 weeks or about 2 weeks to COP28, our president flew to Saudi Arabia to sign agreements about new oil deals. Shell, again, while we were in Dubai, signed another $5 billion. The feeler some of us are getting is that this government, rather than begin to attract in renewable, sustainable energy, still seems to be stuck in the past. And I think that...
But Akinbode, I'm sorry. Is it, for now, isn't that where Nigeria is really making its money? I mean, is this not a function of the fight between the global north and the global south? For now, Nigeria and the rest of the world will not be able to do away with fossil fuel.
Can I tell you this?
Go on.
UAE, the president of COP, said that there is no way you would do away with fossil fuel. When you are in Dubai, it's way cheaper to ride a Tesla than to ride a fossil-driven car. I think beyond what they are saying is that Nigeria as a country needs to have its own energy policy, study where the world is going.
Absolutely.
to, look at what are the potentials that we have. People speak about lithium in the northern part of Nigeria. Somebody once said that they were trying to attract one company to begin to set up plants in Nigeria. I think we need to be much more serious as a country, as a government, or else we'll be left behind. Don't forget, you have mentioned the global north, global south politics. Not only in the oil politics, but in global economic politics. And they will never want to get us to realize our full potentials, except we ourselves think about it and do it. And so, for me as a Nigerian, my president launching 100 buses of, to say we are kickstarting electric buses in Nigeria is like a joke. We need concrete policy in terms of developing our manufacturing capacity, in terms of how we are going to have, the conversions and the rest of them, and how to attract, businesses that are going to be involved in renewable, sustainable energy. We've got this solar power potential that is yet untapped. I think we need a serious, committee to help this government think out. I mean, this is not even about this government. Our country to think at where are we in the global energy mix, and how do we move? How do we go from here? It's not about mounting rhetorics. It's about taking serious decisions. There are countries around the world that take serious decisions. You've got to read what the United States government is doing in terms of moving to renewable energy. Look at what's going on. UK, some countries in Europe are going to completely phase out fossil fuel. You can't just be stuck in the past.
All right. Akinbode, thank you. But Atai, let me come to you in 1 minute. Please, in 1 minute. Do you, in your view, or let me not ask, do you, what advice would you have for Nigeria and Nigerian government? Let's put it the Nigerian government in terms of their energy policy. In 1 minute, Atai, your advice for the Nigerian government in terms of its energy policy.
Engage people that have the knowledge on where the world is going. 2, don't jump into random direction of going to CNG. CNG is still methane, fluorine, nitrogen, carbon dioxide production. Dumping a lot of CNG conversion on Nigerian economy is not going to help us reduce our footprint. 3, drive people that have the skill set, the knowledge, the relationships that will help the country drive itself towards renewable energy and reduce carbon footprint. We cannot just continue, like my man just said, we cannot continue just making talk, having people that don't have the knowledge of what's happening globally. All our different sectors of the economy has to embrace the UN SDG goals, which is all tied to carbon foot reduction. Today, there is what they call carbon trade. We don't have any platform of registry to realize that potential. So there's a whole lot going on that needs some external knowledge, external relationships that we may need to bring in because we don't have that.
Right. Atai, thanks a lot. Unfortunately, I don't know why your video is freezing right out there in Atlanta, and we're getting a clean sweet video coming in from Lagos. Is that a global north, global south issue? Yeah, I don't understand. All right, thank you so much, Akinbode, Oluwafemi, who's joining us from Lagos, and Atai Apan, joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks a lot, guys, for contributions on the program today. We've been talking about the politics of fossil fuel and funding for renewable energy. My name is Tunde Alabi. Sincere appreciation to the team that's made it possible. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.